exposure. Live from the heart of America, I'm Steve Gruber, ready to deliver an inclusive and diverse discussion on the most important topics of the day, giving you better analysis and insight than anyone else. Shining a spotlight on the cockroaches living in the swamp and delivering truth and justice when hope was starting to fade. It's not fading today. Here are the three big things you need to know to start your day today. Number one, here's an absolute bombshell from the New York Post. Hunter Biden helped secure the funding for a U.S. biolab contractor. Where? Ukraine, of course. Number two, America has already lost the edge it once had when it comes to work ethics. So now the question is, should we discuss a 4-day work week? And number three, we're facing a series of problems in the country right now, and it's quite clear we're not on the same page when it comes to addressing any of them. Any of them. The border is wide open. Wide open. Even though the Democrats claim it's secure, everyone knows that's an absolute lie. Just ask the folks in El Paso or say Yuma, Arizona, where the hospital is teetering on the verge of bankruptcy after it has been overrun by illegals flooding into the country, and all of the stress on schools and Social Security services. And yes, hospitals are continuing to get worse every single day. Republicans want to build a wall and secure the country, but Democrats scream racism, while many are living in their gated lily-white communities pontificating about diversity. Inflation crushing the middle class and lower-income families in America today, and there's no end in sight. In fact, the Fed is about to jack up interest rates again because they're nowhere near the 2% rate they need to be. But Joe Biden keeps claiming we're all doing great, of course. With his ugly brain fog, he might actually believe that. And that he drove an 18-wheeler or that he marched in the civil rights movement, which, of course, he didn't do any of those things. Our cities are on fire with rioting and crime. Murders and violence are totally out of control. Republicans want to hire more police officers and back the blue, while many on the left keep harping on defunding the police. There's a complete disconnect in schools where teachers' unions and activist educators want to push transgender ideology and CRT, while teaching kids that America is a racist and terrible place where you have victims and oppressors, and it's all based, of course, just on skin color. What are the threats to America? Well, let's have some others weigh in and get some other perspectives, because there are many. Kevin McCarthy actually nailed the biggest threats to America, but he missed the biggest one of all, though it is enshrined in everything he pointed to, and that is socialism. Listen.
Okay, there's something we're going to do that hasn't been done. And look, we've got a lot of challenges out there, but I think the three greatest threats to America long term is our debt, our education system, and China. And so this week, we're going to hold a bipartisan meeting in the auditorium. We usually do this for classified briefings, and it's going to be on the budget. And we're going to bring in the Congressional Budget Office. They just came out with new numbers, and we're going to hold a briefing so everybody knows the same numbers, because it is dire the position that we are today. We're spending more per GDP than we ever have, and we've got more money coming in, percentage of GDP. We've only been getting 20% in the year 2001 and 1944. We're getting it now, but we're spending so much. And if you look at the new numbers, in the next 10 years, we will spend $10.5 trillion just on interest.
Think about that, $10.5 trillion just on interest. He's right, by the way. China, the budget, and education, which are all basically tied directly to socialism. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was in California over the weekend giving a speech at the Ronald Reagan Library. He has some ideas about what we need to fix in this country. Here's part of what he had to say.
I think these liberal states have gotten it wrong. And why are they getting it wrong? I think it all goes back to ideology. I think it goes back to this woke mind virus that's infected the left and all these other institutions.
The woke mind virus. Man, is he right about that? It's infected all of these people. They have a fever of ignorance and hatred for America. You know, the place where millions come to be free, come pouring over the border even now. That America. And like I said a moment ago, unless you have reached the 1%, and maybe even then, you're not immune to the exploding prices of everything from food to transportation to medication. And, of course, shelter, a place to live. The price of everything is off the charts, and with more interest rates that will hit anyone trying to buy a house or a used car going up again, it's only getting worse. Fed chairman says it's going to happen. Economist Larry Summers also points to debt, interest rates, and inflation as major threats to this country. all created, he says, by terrible policies from Joe Biden and his White House. And we're in for a rude awakening. Listen to this.
Historically, we don't tend to be able to engineer soft landings from significant inflation. And so my guess is that at some point the Fed will push and push. We will not get inflation accelerate and skyrocket out of control. But my guess is that the process of bringing down inflation will bring on a recession at some stage, as it almost always has in the past.
It's mathematically almost a certainty, in fact. Inflation drives recession. It's what happens. Yet, the divide is everywhere, and the media, the corporate rags, and talking heads always blame those that are conservatives. Even though any rational conversation would disprove such a fallacy, they just persist. It's endless. From The Atlantic, the same old story, pretending that right-wing violence is somehow a bigger threat than violence on the left. The truth is, it's all dangerous. Listen.
And this is really disturbing, sort of the normalization of violence. And I think it's important. I want to say that, I wrote about violence erupting from the far right, from the far left. But when you look at what's happening, it really is extremist right-wing violence that scholars who look at this most closely are most worried about. And so it's not sort of that it's equal on all sides. And there is also, a phenomenon that's new to this era, which is very troubling. And that's that you've had a powerful mainstream party in the Republican Party really inciting and endorsing, including among the then sitting president in Donald Trump, this kind of violence. And you saw that this weekend in his remarks at CPAC. And so the idea that a powerful party is sort of cheering on this violence is different and dangerous.
Inciting violence at CPAC. I must have missed that important speech. Meanwhile, in the Republican Party, a bumpy ride so far. That is true, with former President Donald Trump holding a commanding lead in the polls, while many are still looking for an alternative. It's true. Karl Rove says he doesn't care that he's targeted by the former president and that his CPAC speech was good, but not as good as it's been in the past. Then he pivoted to Ron DeSantis. Here's part of what he had to say.
I think the president's speech was a good one, but not a great one. He has, he has now begun to emphasize issues, but some of those issues are a little weird. Building 10 new cities around America and having people elect school principals just strike me as fanciful ideas. But at least he was talking mostly, not entirely, but mostly about the future. We did have, the recitation that he'd actually won the 2020 election and that he'd won it by a lot, which I think people are over that. They just move on. You didn't win the election. You aren't president of the United States. Stay focused on the future. DeSantis is laying the predicate for a presidential campaign. He's not exactly running for president yet. He understands that people need to know more about him. And I thought his speech in California, and from what I heard, the speeches in Dallas and Houston, where he spoke to.
Yeah, so you get it. He gets in and starts talking about the dissertation on Ron DeSantis, and he pivots that way. Karl Rove, obviously not a Donald Trump fan, so it is. His speech at CPAC was good. Have I seen better? Yes, I have, but it was still solid. We'll leave it there for today. We'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show.